Greetings and salutations, my friend. I never did a film review on this channel before. Even though I wanted to do that on a completely separate channel, I decided, since there are some changes happening to this channel right now and I'm taking it into many new directions, I was thinking, yeah, you know what, it's about time I do a film review. And what better place to start than Terrifier 3? I mentioned on multiple occasions that I'm a huge fan of horror. I love horror films and horror games, all of that, and literature as well, like classical horror literature. I love that. And so I've watched Terrifier 3 for the first time yesterday, and it was quite an experience, to be honest. And I had a dream last night that I was being chased by Art the Clown, like followed and chased by him in my dream after watching that film, which was both terrifying, no pun intended, and really fun at the same time. Although I don't think it will be fun in real life. Not at all. You know, when it comes to films that are very violent, very gory, I either love it or I hate it, you know? I love it when it's unrealistic and over the top, but also I'm not a big fan of like very realistic gore, so I never really enjoyed films like Martyrs or Hostel or Salò, also known as 120 Days of Sodom, based on the novel of the same name by Marquis de Sade. Very interesting fellow, for sure. And I never enjoy those films. There's something disturbing about them that I don't like. But then there are some gore films that I love, like Brain Dead.
I kick ass for the Lord!
I think there's something really campy about Brain Dead and funny that makes me love it. And, you know, I think gore of this type is sort of like a really dumb comedy. And I put this type of over-the-top gore and dumb comedies in the same category for me. It's a film I watch for fun, to sort of like take a break from usual stuff. Because there's nothing particularly intelligent about it, but it's fun, you know, it's fun, and that's what it's supposed to be. Not everything is supposed to be deep. Sometimes you just have to dive into that lake of fun. And it's a very, very bloody and gory lake, let me tell you. This film is really campy and funny, just like the last one, Terrifier 2. But I really want to focus on gore first in the first section of this video, because I think this is primarily what Terrifier films are known for. So there's one thing I really regret going into this film, and that is that I really watched and read too much promotional material and all the hype around this film. And there was a lot of hype. Most of it had to do with gore, actually. Reports of the film being so disgusting that people were passing out in theaters, walking out in the first scene, and apparently this first scene was supposed to be like super shocking. And it's not just that, because I've heard so many people saying that this new Terrifier is like, has the level of gore from the last film multiplied by 10. And when I finally sat down to watch it, I was a bit disappointed, to be honest, because it didn't really meet my expectations. Like, if you've watched Terrifier 1 and 2, you know what to expect. I don't think this film did anything other than that. I don't think it pushed my limits. Like, at no point during this film I would say, oh shit, that's nasty, that really got to me. But I had this expectation that it's going to, because of how hyped up it was. And honestly, I don't think this hype worked in Damien Leone's favor. It will work on people who are casual horror moviegoers, who, you know, maybe see something like The Conjuring or something like that. I mean, even though 80s classics, like 80s slasher classics, perhaps are not, they do not have the same level of violence and gore as Terrifier films do. I can understand how it could have that sort of effect on the casual, but if you're a fan of this franchise and you like the previous two, there's nothing really shocking about 3. I think the only ways in which this film is trying to shock its viewers has not much to do with the gore itself or its levels, but rather with the concepts. And yes, there are some concepts in this film that may be considered as in pushing the envelope or even might offend some people. I get that, but in terms of gore, not really. And so I had this expectation, and it felt like what the film offered me was the appetizer. Like, oh, okay, I see this is going somewhere. Where's the main dish? Where's the main dish? You're waiting for the main dish. And then the chief comes and says, oh, that was it. That was the main dish. What? 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 So, if I had this itch for something really gory, when I started watching this film, after I finished watching it, it didn't necessarily scratch that itch. It was still there, you know. That's why I think I should rewatch it again with different expectations, because outside of that, I really think the film wasn't bad. Overall, I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. Whereas Terrifier 2, which I think is the best in the series, was like, yeah, solid 7 or 7.5. But the gore that did exist, well, what I think this film did differently, I think those kills were more creative in the previous films. And in this film you see Art using new weapons and new methods of killing that we haven't seen him do before. Yes, there's Art using his chainsaw, and yeah, we never seen that. Or liquid nitrogen. The whole scene when he just throws Santa's limbs in liquid nitrogen and then smashed them with hammer and finished with his face. That was pretty fun. That was pretty fun. And you can see the inspirations from Christmas themes in this film, in the way he just massacres everyone. Like taking the carrot off the snowman and putting it in Santa's face. Like, that's a sort of thing that could work only in a Christmas horror film, you know? And that's the originality of it, that's the fun part of it. Or how he decorated a Christmas tree with intestines of one of his victims. Things like that, really. I think it's sort of fun and really, really morbid at the same time. Going into this film, at first, I was skeptical before I seen it. And I was even considering not watching it. Because I knew that kids are going to die in this film. And that is something I'm personally rather sensitive about, and I think there are a lot of people who are sensitive about it, you know, but harm being done to kids, any type of harm, really. And even though you know it's fiction, you absolutely know it's fiction, there's still that really uncomfortable feeling about it. But then again, you know, I think horror is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable in some way. I think the point of horror is to explore that, what we find uncomfortable. However, knowing that David Howard Thornton, who plays Art the Clown, which I'm also going to talk more about his performance later, he is an educator and he has worked with kids before, he's a teacher, and he's really, really good with kids. And you know, that sort of affirmed my idea that, okay, you know what, it's not going to be so bad, I'm going to watch it. Like, I've put some trust in him, that, yeah, you know what, he's good with kids, they're going to know how to work with kids on set during filming of a film like this.
I thought I was like mentally scarring this child in the scene where I had the knife up next to her throat because I mean, she was freaking out so much, and like when the cuts we had, I just turned like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And she just turns to me and goes, "Oh, I'm doing great." I'm like, "Whoa!" And I
she was like, yeah.
yeah, she was like, I'm having fun. I'm like, this is great. I was like, wow, because I mean, I was fully believing that she was in like full on panic mode because I felt icky doing what I was doing to her. And I was like, if you ever feel uncomfortable, please, please, please let me know. I said the same thing to her mother, and her mother's like, oh no, if she's not comfortable with something, she will let you know. It's totally fine. I'm like, okay, I just want you to know that I don't feel right doing this type of thing to a child, but she's fantastic because I totally believed her.
Most kills, or actually all kills that involve kids in this film are happening off screen. So you don't really see that. And this is something I'm glad for, because otherwise I really think kids could be intensely traumatized from filming this type of piece of art. Pun intended indeed. But no, I think it was done in a taste. If taste is a word you can describe this film, because like I said, I think it's absolutely tasteless. And a lot of kills in this film are actually happening off screen, and there were points where I was unsure if Art let that person live or if he murdered them, because we didn't really see what is happening. And well, one of perfect examples of that is in the opening scene, where, and this was actually one of the funniest moments that happened right before that, but I'm also going to talk about funny moments later. When Art finds this little girl hiding from him, and he just does this, hello, hello. I was asking myself, did he do to her what he did to her parents and brother? Or did he let her live with that trauma? With her just being damaged for the rest of his life? And I was asking myself, what is worse, actually? And I'm thinking, well, there's a possibility that Art could do both, really. Like, I know he's capable of doing both, knowing the character. And there was another scene, also early in the film, when Art and Vicky are on the subway train, and a fanboy of Art boards the train, sits down, and he's wearing Art's costume, cosplay sort of thing, and honks his little horn at them, and takes a picture of them. He's like super happy to see them. Also thinks that they are actually wearing costume themselves. And then I was thinking, well, did they kill him? Or did they think like, well, you know what? This is fun and flattering. So cool that we have fans, just let him go. And there's this level of unpredictability about Art. Because we know that he doesn't kill everyone who's in his way, right? We have seen him feeding some kids in the second film Halloween candy without murdering them, just giving a little slap on the wrist when that one kid tried to reach for one more. Which is such an Art move, really. So this level of unpredictability is what I find really, really fun about this character. Because, and you can theorize a lot, that if you're mean to him, he's definitely going to kill him. If you play along, maybe not. And we have seen examples of that where it doesn't work. You can't really predict that. You can play along, you can be super nice to him, and he can murder you really brutally. Other times, you can't be mean to him, and he will just shoot you in the face and you're done. So, I don't think there's like any rule. And if anyone believes that there is a rule and there is a method to survive encounters with Art the Clown, or that you can somehow make your encounter with him less painful, nah, sorry, I'm not buying it. I don't think there is a method to avoid any of that. He's just an unpredictable force of nature and does whatever he feels like. this is part of the reason why I think Art is one of the most interesting slasher characters or villains we have had in a very, very long time. I think horror genre, at least slasher genre, really peaked in the 70s and 80s. And although it's not my favorite horror genre by any means, I'm more about psychological horror and body horror. I think slasher is a really fun genre sometimes. But to me, Art already has that cult status, like Michael Myers, Jason or Freddy. He's there with him. In some ways, I also think there's something special about Art that distinguishes him from those characters, and that is that silent but very animated character, because he says so much without saying anything. And I think that this film had some of David Howard Thornton's best performance yet, and I think he did absolutely amazing job in Terrifier 2. Here is just so funny and animated, and you can see this is a serial killer who's really enjoying himself, what he's doing. This is just fun to him, and sometimes, I ask myself, is he aware that what he's doing is wrong and evil and he rejoices in it, or does he in his twisted head somehow think that, oh yeah, there is nothing wrong with it, I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm just goofy and childish and I'm having fun, with other people's guts and blood and organs. I don't know. Another reason why I find this character so interesting, because he is goofy and silly. He's like a cartoon character in many ways, and I can see clear inspiration that David Howard Thornton took from both cartoons and old silent comedies in his performance, as well as maybe mime work or miming. There's art is sort of like a mime more than clown sometimes. Now, funny moments. There were so many of those in this film. I still prefer Terrifier 2. I think it made me laugh more than this one, but the whole scene with the Santa, or actually I think there was like 3 scenes, but just seeing Art being so happy when he saw Santa. There was something hilarious about it, and that little interaction he had with Santa. It almost makes you think like, oh, he's not gonna kill him. He loves Santa. And I think the fact he loves Santa is even more of a reason why he wanted to kill him. And one part in the opening sequence, which I almost touched upon previously, was when Art murdered his family, and then he sat down and ate the cookies with the milk. I was like super happy about it. And then he cleaned the plate. He left blood and guts all over the place, but he cleaned the plate. I was like, I ate it, I cleaned it. I mean, there's something hilarious about it, and I think it's also one of those Art's most normal moments, like sort of like right before he kills Allie in Terrifier 2, he just pours himself a glass of water and drinks it. It's like those most human moments of Art that we see him doing something very, very human. Art has a sick sense of humor, especially when he's doing the kills. You can see he's enjoying himself, and I really think it also helps the audience enjoy themselves because of that. When it comes to the story, and I think the story is sort of a secondary thing in Terrifier films, I don't think anyone is actually watching those films primarily for the story. I also don't think the story is that good, but there's something going on. There's been something going on in the story since the previous films. And in Terrifier 2, I really love the introduction of Sienna and her brother Jonathan. Unfortunately, and this is something I really disliked about the third installment, is that Jonathan had a much smaller role. He only appears in, I think maybe 6-7 scenes throughout the whole film, and honestly, I'm not sure if I liked where they were going with his character. I get it. Both Jonathan and Sienna experienced something really traumatic, and I know how trauma changes a person. Been there, done that. So I absolutely understand that, but I think there were some moments when Jonathan was acting so out of character that this didn't really sit right with me. Because I saw how this experience changed Sienna, and I was thinking like, yeah, this healer is like realistic and this is what could be expected. Something about Jonathan just bugged me. Like, there's more to it than just post-traumatic stress disorder. But I'll get back to that later. And speaking of Jonathan, here's another character that was killed off screen. And I'm not buying into it. I think it's a golden rule. You know, it's a golden rule that if a major character dies off screen, they're probably not dead. It's a rule of thumb, really. And I just learned it from so many examples. I don't think I can think of any right now at the top of my head, but yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you don't trust the writers who do that. Like, yeah, no, I'm not buying that. But the scene during which it was revealed that Jonathan is dead, I think sort of moved the franchise in a different direction, because I think out of all final acts in all the 3 films, this was the darkest one. It didn't even feel like a Terrifier film. And I think the presence of this demon, who now took form of Vicky, one of Art's previous victims, really added to that. And I think she really stole the show in that final act. Like, at that point, it didn't feel like it was about Art the Clown. He did some goofy stuff and jokes and kills early in the film, but in that final part, you could like, yeah, this is the real villain here. I think there was this sense of tension and something really disturbing in that scene that I really liked, that no other Terrifier film has managed to do before, at least not for me. There's also a lot of biblical references in this film, and I think this film is moving even further in the fantasy direction and the supernatural fantasy stuff. And I've heard Damien Leone, the director of this film, saying that this one's going to be more grounded, that Terrifier 2 was more fantasy. I have to disagree. I really think this moves it even further in that direction. Which, I mean, it makes sense after we already know that there's something deeper going on. And we knew that in the second film, right? With the sword and the little pale girl and all of that. This film pretty much confirms that the entity that follows Art is a demon. And I think many of us figured it out already in the second film, when it took the form of that little girl. It was never confirmed, but yeah, I mean, that was pretty much the best explanation there was. And I always sort of knew, like, yeah, this entity probably resurrected Art at the beginning of the second film. Well, after watching this film, there is no reason to doubt it. And I know that the second film left us with more questions than answers. And some people complain about it, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Actually, I prefer films that leave you with more questions, because, well, that creates more discussion, right? There's more to talk about if there's a lot of stuff you don't know than if the film tells you and shows you absolutely everything. So I'm glad that Damien Leone is not doing that, that he's just giving us small hints with each coming film. I like that. And I think they did it right in this one. That they built on top of that, but they also left us being intrigued about what is going on. And now, considering that this entity that follows Art is a demon, and there's something demonic about Art as well, we also know that there's something angelic about Sienna, and that she was being chosen. We also see, and I think this dream sequence that Sienna has, I'm pretty sure that this blacksmith is Sienna's dad. That's my impression, at least. I know some people might disagree with me on that, but I think this is Sienna's dad working for angels, and there is something disturbing there about the angel and the angelic side of things. But I think that too is actually sort of accurate with biblical descriptions of angels. And I think the next film is going to go even deeper than that, because based on the ending, I think Sienna is going to hell.
You will live waiting for hellfire. Be burned in the hellfire.
In the next film, to retrieve her sword and to save Gabby. Considering that the very final scene sees this woman sitting on a bus reading a book titled The Ninth Circle, pretty much confirms that in my head for two reasons. Ninth Circle was the first short film that featured Art the Clown, and in that film we see Art abducting a woman, and then she wakes up in a place that I could only interpret as hell, considering all the demonic figures and the presence of Satan himself. Ninth Circle may also be a reference to Dante's Inferno, the Divine Comedy, where the hell had those 9 circles, the 9th circle being the final one. And the 9th circle is represented as a frozen place where the sinners are frozen in ice. I don't know, I think I'm reaching now, but Art also used liquid nitrogen in this film to freeze Santa. So I absolutely think the next film is going to be the most hellish, more demonic one yet, and I can't wait to see it. All of that being said, I have a theory after watching this film. And take it with a grain of salt, obviously, because it's just a fan theory, but at first, I think the first part of it is going to be quite obvious, and that, well, Jonathan is not dead. And, well, I don't think we have to make many arguments for that, because, well, the rule of thumb, like I said, is if a major character is killed off screen, they're probably alive. But, well, I think we have a reason to believe that Vicky lied about it being Jonathan, because we already know that she lied to Gabby's mother. I don't remember her name, unfortunately, but she died believing that that decapitated head was the head of her daughter, which actually I think was the most disturbing and sad part of this whole film, because I felt bad for her dying such a gruesome death, believing that her daughter is gone. So, yeah, I think they wanted to fuck with Sienna's head at that point. However, would they have a reason not to kill Jonathan? Well, no, absolutely not. I think there are many reasons to believe that they would. They absolutely would kill Jonathan. But I have a completely different theory, actually. I think that they disposed of Jonathan even before that. I think the Jonathan we have seen throughout this film is not the real Jonathan. And I think there are two options. Well, either they kill him before the first scene in which Jonathan appears, approximately 40 minutes into the film, something like that. The other option is that they didn't actually kill him, but they trapped him in hell, and he has been there this whole time. Now, why would I think that the Jonathan we have seen is not the real Jonathan? We know that he's been acting differently, but this all can be reduced to trauma. However, I think there's been so many hints at that something is off. You know, like, Jonathan doesn't wear black anymore. Or Jonathan going to a party, since when? And I don't know, I think there's just something about the importance of that which really made me think, like, yeah, is Jonathan just not acting like Jonathan? Why? And this alone in and of itself doesn't have to mean anything. But now, let's take into consideration this. We know that this demonic entity can imitate other people's voices. And we have seen it both in Terrifier 2 and 3. We have seen the little pale girl imitating Jonathan's voice to lure Sienna. We have also seen her doing that when she talked to Jonathan's and Sienna's uncle on the phone, imitating Jonathan. So I think, taking that into consideration, there's a possibility that this entity can not only imitate someone's voice, but also what someone looks like. And considering that while Art was doing his thing, you know, his carnage and massacre during Christmas time, Vicky wasn't with him. So where was she? And I think a possible explanation for that is that, well, she was playing Jonathan this whole time. I think that, you know, even considering the trauma that Jonathan experienced, and he's showing it in a different way than Sienna because he's hiding it, you know, but little things like he didn't even stood up for his sister when that asshole of a podcaster approached her, or that he just tries to push her off the trail, like, don't worry, you know, Art is dead, he's not coming back. Even though in the previous letters he sent to Sienna, he told her that we need to go back and kill that entity in order for Art to truly stay dead. Like, he knew it. But then was just straight up denying it and trying to persuade Sienna to back off. I found that was just really out of character, and at first I thought that was just really bad writing. I hated what they did with Jonathan. But when I started thinking about it, you know, it makes sense if it's not Jonathan. Right? Because, well, why would Vicky tell Sienna, yeah, you know, we should kill Vicky? So, I don't know. Take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but I think there's something to it. I trust my guts on this one, and I think, yeah, we might be seeing something about that in the next film. And the real Jonathan has been already dead, or he's trapped in hell. And again, I was thinking, like, if I was writing this, I think the only acceptable way for me to kill a character off screen would be to kind of imply that they're dead, but then you actually find out that they've been dead this whole time. I think that sort of twist would be the only interesting and acceptable way to kill a character off screen, just doing something original with it. So anyway, those were my thoughts on this film and my theory and what we will see next. Share your thoughts and tell me what do you think of my theory? Does it make sense? Is it total baloney? I would like to know. So yeah, drop it in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Ciao.